right, so we're recording. My name is Avery, and your name is?
Shane Wilson. I'm
Shane
from
Wilson.
Northwood Village over here in West Palm Beach.
So a bit of the backstory here is I was on Northwood Street maybe an hour ago. I ran into Shane and basically told him that I'm doing a YouTube channel about the neighborhood. And as a child, I went to his family pawn shop. In fact, I went to both of the pawn shops. When I was super young, I bought my first boombox from Wilson Pawn on Dixie Highway. And that went away a
Boombox.
long time ago. And then I bought my first gun from Butch at Northwood Pawn when Shane was still a kid. So yeah, I didn't know who Shane was, and we just happened to have this strange kind of relationship. So Shane, welcome to the studio.
I appreciate you having me here. It's an honor, honestly.
Well, I appreciate that. So, what are we going to discuss? What are we going to discuss this evening?
Well, we've discussed a lot, and I feel like we should discuss more of what we've been talking about. Maybe even revisit some of the topics. Personally, I'd like to talk about the neighborhood. I love the neighborhood. I've always lived here my whole life. I got a lot of respect for the community. It's just, I notice the change. The change is coming, and there's really no stopping progress. I'm not saying I'm a part of the progress or I'm in the way of the progress, but I see it coming. I see the neighborhood changing, but the people, where the hell are they all? It's all gonna be to the point where, let me get my thoughts together here. I don't want to come off as a racist or anything. I'm a white boy. I live in the hood. I've chosen to live. It's been a life choice my whole life to live over here. I love the neighborhood. But I've seen my fair share over here. Like when COVID happened, for instance, everybody had the masks on. It wasn't so much of a mandate in Florida, it seemed like, but the president said to wear your mask, so people were wearing their masks, and people had an excuse to cover their face and dirty deeds, you know. I'm probably and I feel like I'm one of the only ones that call the police over here when I need to.
So, when the mask mandate was implemented, you saw more crime in the
At
neighborhood?
least 20 to 30% more shootings, in my opinion. I don't know what the actual statistics were on it, but there was 3 real bad shootings in one night. One of my friends, I don't know if you know him from the neighborhood, I don't want to put his name out there, so I won't, but he got his pecker shot off. And not the whole thing, thank God. And I only know this because I lost sleep for like a couple weeks thinking about, because he came running to me. I heard the shots, I'm out on my balcony, and then I go downstairs with my phone calling the cops. This is either 2019 or 2020, right when it all started, you know? The COVID, the big scare. Yeah, I got a mullet, so this is not going to come off as strange. I believe still to this day COVID's just the flu, but that's not for me to say. I'm not a medical professional, but it was this big scare. Everybody's wearing masks, and crime, you know, people were out there, multiple people. The day that I went to Blum Park over this shooting, calling 911, I seen 3 shooters, never got questioned about it either by West Palm Beach police. And I'm there putting pressure on this guy who got shot, you know? And I just get shooed off like I'm a nobody, and they shoo everybody off that was in the shooting. And it's like, I'm trying to explain to the cop that, hey, these are all witnesses, and you're running them off. He's like, what'd they see, a bunch of masked people? And I'm like,
wow.
Yeah, that's what I seen, a bunch of masked people. And he's like, how many? I'm like, 3 at the most. You know, but I wasn't there, you know. All I seen are the people running this way and the other people running that way after the shots fired. About 15 shots, you know, I got decent enough memory, but at the time I'm working at Slovakia Grill on 25th Street, right down the street from Northwood where I live. And everybody knows me. You've seen the Monte Carlo there in front of the coffee shop a million times, I'm sure.
Sure.
And back in the day, everybody knew it as the blue Monte Carlo in the neighborhood, and with the white kid who drives it. A lot of them knew me as Lori's son from the pawn shop, but, you know, or the youngest or whatever.
You were there the whole time Keith was building up Harold's, no?
that was a whole mistake written to him all on its own. But he's a good guy. I like Keith, but his lawyers got involved, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, let's avoid talking about Keith.
Yeah, but the neighborhood knew me from the Monte Carlo, and you know, out buying some pot once in a while, like dime here, dub there. But for those that don't know, that's $10 and $20 worth of pot, so that's daily consumption requirement minimum. Anyways, they all know me as white boy or whatever, and the kid who drives the old schools. And after the shots and the 911 call, I hear my name being called, so I look up. It's weird for anybody to call me by my name. It's got to be somebody that knows me personally, I'm thinking. And I see one of the regular people I'm getting from, and he's running with like 4 or 5 other people, you know, and he's kind of limping a little bit or walking on a weird angle, and he's wearing a white t-shirt, and I don't see a speck of blood on it. And I'm like, dude, are you hit? Are you good? Is it your leg? What's going on? I'm trying to sit him down in front of my Monte Carlo because big metal car, 1975. A bullet's going to stop if it hits the car, you know, or it might. Well, you might have better chances behind it. I don't know. When I'm trying to sit him down, this guy goes and sits down in front of a plastic bumpered Mercedes from like 2000s. He did me a favor because he was stashing stuff, but you know, they impound the car if it's found underneath the car. So I was lucky that night he didn't sit in front of my car. But yeah, man, the whole time I'm not scared of getting shot. I wanted to help my friend, but at the same time, it's like, what the fuck's going on with my community? What's going on with the people in my community? And in my opinion, I think it was over a park territory. They like Blum Park. They want to hang out there or whatever it was, done and over with years ago.
Which park is that?
It's right over here across from Northwood, you know, right behind, basically on the other side of the pawn shop, off of Spruce. It's that little park with the kids' playgrounds.
Tennis court.
And tennis court, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know, he was my friend. He hooked me up when I needed somebody to hook me up, and he's a good guy. You know, he got kids now, and thank God he didn't get all of it shot off. But I was checking him for blood. He had a white t-shirt, and I didn't see a speck. And, you know, people wear the pants low around here, and I just think he had on silky dark red underwear. No, he's sitting in a puddle of his own blood, and I'm like, oh, shit. And again, going back to, I'm not racist, I'm just scared of AIDS. I grabbed his arm and kind of plopped it down in his lap because I didn't want to get blood on me, you know. No, there's like a good chance if you get a hooker in West Palm, you're gonna get AIDS. Plain and simple. It's a scary, scary neighborhood. There's a girl that hangs out on the corner with AIDS, and she goes into the same corner store I do. Used to be real big, got real skinny. I don't know her name, but she always say, "You give me $5. You give me." It's like, I barely got $1 for a drink, girl. What are you asking? You give me? What the hell? But I love the neighborhood, and I've seen the change. You know, the shootings have gone down tremendously. You know, but I don't know if that's because people can't afford to go out and shoot each other, or the hate's died down, or what it was. But I've seen this neighborhood for its worst in my time, because I live over here. Like 4th of July, you'd be hiding under your bed some 4th of Julys, because I've had bullets come through my windows.
Yes.
Yeah, it happens. It happens over here. But the people, I've seen them struggle growing up in the pawn shop. My mom and my grandmother, when she was alive, they had a saying. The pawn shop is the poor man's bank. It's for the man who can't go to the bank and get a loan. Like, you don't got, your house isn't collateral because you don't own it, you know, you're renting or something, or, oh, you haven't paid off your car so we can't use that as collateral, or, hey, your credit score is in the toilet, you know, you can't get a loan for shit. So you take your chain off and you go to the pawn shop. And I grew up there, and I say what you will about pawn shops. I'm sure a bunch of people have their experiences with them that are not pleasant. My mom was a good lady when she ran it. That's why we lost 2 of them. We had one in Riviera, one over on Dixie, and then the mother shop was Northwood. That's the one we ended up keeping. When I was born, that's the one I grew up in Northwood. I wasn't alive for the other ones. My grandfather, he was the one who bought those. But
Where was the one in Riviera Beach?
I want to say that was right off of US 1 Broadway, right there.
What was it called?
That's a good question. That's before my time, and I asked more questions about Dixie Pawn, honestly, because that was the one that had the gun license. The other one didn't have a gun license.
What was the guy's? There was a pawn shop on North Lake Boulevard. I think it turned into a.
Oh, you're talking about Tricky Dicky. You're right there by the water and the car lot.
No, the one a little bit further east.
It's got to be Tricky Dicky.
There was two pawn shops that I knew of on North Lake. One of them was
Oh,
close to the water.
you're thinking of the America Pawn or whatever.
Yeah,
it
but
is.
who owned that before? Was it like Big Al's or something like that?
Yeah, it was something. Everybody in the pawn shop game, if they're an owner, they get a nickname because they're hustling people, you know.
Fast Eddie had the spot on,
Fast Eddie,
on
yeah.
Broadway in Riviera, right?
Yep.
I think it was. I don't remember if it was Big Al's or not, but if it wasn't uncommon, to go in there and see this guy I used to work for his golf clubs. I mean, when it came time for payroll, sometimes Huckle, we called him Huckle. That's enough. I'm not going to mention his real name, but man, he would pawn the golf clubs or get credit from Pedro over there at the liquor store. Or
Hey,
whatever
when
the
you
case
need
may
that
be.
extra money, it's a good place to go.
Man, it was just, man, I worked for that guy for years. Never got paid on time. We always got paid, but man, it was such a hassle.
That's how it is running a business, though. You don't always make money, and sometimes your employees make more money than you do.
Nah,
when
Huckle
you
made
do.
money. Huckle had a gambling problem. That's what it was.
Oh, he had a dream.
Yeah, he had a
He had a
gambling
dream.
problem, and sometimes he would win, but you know how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were in the tile business, and he was the boss, and he definitely had a gambling problem.
Yeah. You just got to get him before he goes to the club to gamble it away. Yeah, but getting back to the pawn shop days, I grew up here. I still got a lot of friends from back in the pawn shop days. You hear it all the time. Your family did this or that, or it's like, we're not in control of if you come in and pay. If you don't pay, sometimes stuff gets sold. My mom, she trained me and my brother when we were working there. If something comes in with a story, like this is my mother's wedding ring, or, this or that, handed down to me, heirloom, just put it in the safe. We don't need to sell everything. And even if it's somebody you never seen, they might come back. And my mom, this is a true story to the best of my knowledge.
So hold on, so normally after someone doesn't come back for it, you're supposed
30
to.
days.
And how long would your grandma or mom sometimes wait?
Well, this is the true story I was going to tell you. She once held, this wasn't for a friend, this wasn't for a daily customer that she's seen, this was for a random person. She came in, she's obviously a little bit out of her mind, wanting some money. I guess she got dropped off by her boyfriend or something, and she pawned her grandmother's wedding ring. And it wasn't for a lot, it was like 60, 70 bucks. You'd hate to lose such an heirloom for such a shitty amount of money, Times are hard, we get it. But my mom, she put that in the safe and she put a little note next to it so she knew what it was, a little Ziploc baggie. And, she would sell stuff, but she had a heart, If it's not antique jewelry is not worth what it used to be. Maybe in the 80s or 90s it was cool to be a hipster, have a 100-year-old ring. Nobody gives a shit about it now. It's just more jewelry. Throw it in the melter, smelt it. But she'd throw stuff away, and anyways, 20 years later, because she worked there her whole life, my mother.
20 years later.
My mother worked there her whole life, raised 2 kids by herself. I never met my father. My godfather, Butch, the guy who sold you a gun, closest man I had to a father. That's why I take care of him now that he's old. You know, you gotta one hand wash the other.
Sure.
He taught me how to work on cars, how to work on ladies, taught me everything I needed to know.
Okay.
Yeah, but good man. Taught me how to shoot. Good guy. So I try to take care of him. But my mom too, you know, she's a good lady. And it's crazy, like the things that slip by with her that I find astonishing, you know, like you hold on to a ring for 20 years for a rando, that's fucking astonishing.
So did you meet the woman when she came back for the ring?
She was there when I was working. She came in and she was in tears, had been to like 5 different pawn shops. Couldn't remember what pawn shop she pawned it at. She says, I was in Palm Beach on vacation. Pawned my ring, couldn't remember where it was because I got ditched in the hood by my fiance at the time. And I was so scared, you know, I knew I needed some money for the bus and I had no money, so she pawned her ring, the only thing she had on her worth value. Always keep something on you for an emergency. You might get robbed for it, but it's worth it. But anyways, pawn shop will save your life. My mom gave her some money, and then years later, 20 years later, she come in looking for it. But my mom would do that for people. She had regular clientele she'd hold on to stuff for. She had a drug dealer in the neighborhood she'd work with. Sometimes he was really up, sometimes he was really down, you know, but he always had that big gold chain. My mom would hold it for a year or 2 for him sometimes until he'd get out of prison. And it's like, who the fuck does that? Who aside from your family member can you give a chain to hold, you know?
You know, I think I remember meeting your grandmother not too long ago when that company.
My grandmother passed away. You probably met my mother. That's my mom. She used to look good when I was a kid, but she got bigger now that she's older.
Creme de la Creme. When Creme de la Creme opened up.
Oh my, that wasn't recent. That was back when my grandmother was alive. You're right. Yeah.
To me, that's recent.
Yeah, that's. Dude, that's back before. Yeah, that was when I was still 18. I'm 31 now.
I had to talk with your grandmother then.
Yeah, she was a real good lady. She helped raise me to be the person I try to be, you know. I don't always say I'm a good person, but I try.
This is Avery.
Hey, what's going on? You came by my house and let me know her?
Hey, yeah, but I'm in the middle of an interview right now. I'm actually recording, and I just wanted to take the call because I didn't want you to keep calling during the recording. But can I call you back about your cars after I'm finished recording?
Yeah, how long do you think?
I can call you tomorrow if it's going to be too long. I mean, I'm not sure how long it's going to go on for, but I'm recording a podcast. And I'll call you back when I'm finished. I'm sorry. Excuse me.
No, you're good. You're good. But I will get back to what I kind of wanted to talk to real quick. So diversity, there's a lot of tension with races in our country, and I'm going to tell you from my perspective as a white kid who grew up here. When I used to get off the public bus when I was like middle school age, whatever.
Where'd you go to middle school?
I went to a few middle schools. I got moved around a bunch, but at one point I was over here at what the fuck is that shit school called?
Roosevelt?
Roosevelt.
You went to Roosevelt?
Hated it.
Did you go to Palm Beach Lakes?
I went to Palm Beach Lakes. I went to Gardens. They had one that I got kicked out. I was a troubled youth.
Did you ever go to that vocational school on Garden Road?
No, thank God. No, the best school though that I did go to, I'll put this out there if anybody cares, Riviera Beach Maritime. It was a charter school. They cared about me. They'd ask me where I was if I missed class, but not in an angry way, like they were concerned, like, man, what the hell happened to you, you know?
So that was a good
Teachers would
experience.
level with you, like, you know, you're
Is
a
that
person.
over there close to the port?
Yeah, it's right there by the bridge, you know, right where the port is.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's 13th Street. And they got the Boys and Girls Club right next to it. Thank God they programmed together because that kept me out of a bunch of trouble.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't go out and hang out with the troubled kids because I'd be too busy playing lacrosse. You asked me what lacrosse was when I was 15 and when I was playing football, I had no idea. When I was 18 though, man, I was in shape, got real big, bigger than I was when I was playing football because I was playing lacrosse. And it's like hockey without skis. Is a good
I know
way
what
of
lacrosse
putting it.
is. I was
Scary,
exposed to that.
scary game if you're playing against big motherfuckers. But
It's an impressive game.
yeah, but staying in this neighborhood my whole life and refusing to be in gardens where my mom and was raising my brother, I chose to stay with my godfather because he lived over here and, less rules. I had my own, space. He never bothered me, and so I felt like I was my own man living over here. He was upstairs, I was downstairs. Life was good. And, he inherited his mom's house. I moved in with him with his mom's house because he's getting old and I have to help take care of him, do grocery shopping and stuff. But, growing up here, I've been robbed from my shoes when I think the youngest was 13, and that was like a repeating thing. Like I'd ask my mom, because I noticed kids didn't like my shoes, like, oh, you're wearing Skechers? Those are for the birds. Oh, you still got the Velcro? Oh, what's wrong with you? You don't know how to tie your shoe? So I felt bullied when I was a kid, so I'd go out and get me some, I think at the time I thought and ones were cool. Yeah.
They were cool.
They were at one point. Anyways, I was wearing and ones, and first nice pair of shoes I got in my life, and I think we got them at Kmart or something. Anyways, didn't make it home with them.
Wow.
Yeah, I got off the bus, and I was literally walking from Spruce and 23rd Street or 24th Street, one of the two, to Northwood, which is 3 roads.
Yeah, not much.
And I got my ass whooped the next day when I wore the Skechers again. I got jumped basically, and I didn't even know what a jumping was. I got jumped by like 4 little black kids and maybe a Spanish kid too, but beat the fucking shit out of me.
Was the 7-Eleven still on Spruce back then? Or that convenience
Oh
store?
yeah, it was. It was.
Still there?
Yeah, that was a nice convenience store because I didn't have to go over to Tina's. Not to say Tina's is bad. I highly advise you to go to Tina's if you're in the neighborhood. You get to see a picture of Mike Tyson.
Do you remember that when it actually was a 7-Eleven?
Yeah, I used to buy them little shitty toys in the cardboard and play with them.
You remember Big Man?
Oh, I didn't know anybody's name in there.
He was just this big guy.
Yeah, I remember there being a fat dude in there.
This guy was real tall and just big. And after that, was
They
sold.
had that little hoagie shop too. It was like connected.
No, this was a real 7-Eleven brand store.
Oh.
Eventually, it became
the convenience store.
A convenience store,
Yeah.
Stop and Shop, whatever. But at one point in time, that was an authentic 7-Eleven.
That blows my mind.
And there was this big guy, and we nicknamed him Big Man. And when I was a kid, I had a little apartment on Ponce de Leon. I had a bunch of apartments on the other side of Dixie when I was younger.
Yeah.
And right over there by Curry Park. I would find an apartment and it would have 2 or 3 bedrooms, and I remember being able to like live there, and my portion of the rent was maybe $100 and maybe $25 for electricity. And yeah, I had some basic job, and I made about $500-600 a week.
That's almost a man's salary. I mean, you're
what I
right
mean?
there. You're doing good enough to get by. Come on, that's
I
good.
was 20
feeling
years
good.
old. You know what I mean? And I was even able to save a little bit of money.
Yeah, but that makes you feel good about yourself at that age.
I don't think it's that easy to do that now.
You can't. That's what I was getting at, though. So I grew up in this neighborhood. I've been a victim. I've seen victims. You would think that somebody with the mullet as beautiful as mine, I would fucking hate this community. I love it. I love this community to death. And what I'm scared in a way, even being a property owner. My family, we own 7 units on Northwood there. Watching them build these big high-rises, and they're right on our back door now with these luxury condos. I know it's going to squeeze the neighborhood. It's the people that are here are not going to be here in 3 years. And I've seen people here my whole life. I'm 31 years old, the same people. I probably seen you walking around a bunch because you look real familiar to me. I just couldn't put a finger on where I know you're from.
Yeah, I've been...
It's the goatee.
When Keith had Harold's, I spent a lot of time there because I had a photography studio over off of Windsor and State Street. And then I wound up going to Detroit, for so many years, and wound up in Thailand for a while.
How's that? I always wanted to go.
You should go.
It's worth it.
We'll get into that next time we meet. But
My brother just went to Japan and he said it was garbage. He said they're so racist over there.
you mentioned something about you know, they're closing in.
That's what I'm getting at, though, is so the neighborhood that's never been accused of being the best neighborhood. It's not like everybody's got well manicured lawn, you know. I like it for what it is, though. There's not graffiti and stuff, but you got good people, good families, just trying to raise their kids, and it's a struggle.
You know,
And then to see these luxury condos, oh, we build them up so high. We're going to build them up so high. You're going to be able to see the intercoastal and the ocean.
You know, Shane, you can't stop that.
No, you can't stop progress. But here's the thing: it's like when I was in 2005, when I was a kid still, and the city came after our gun license at the pawn shop. And this is the last shop. We've sold off all the other ones. This is our last holdout, and that's what the city referred to it as. Is City of West Palm Beach called Northwood Pawn Shop the last holdout in the hood. And it's like, what do you mean by that? And it's like, oh, your business is the last holdout. We need to get rid of your business so we can move forward. I've seen some fucked up shit when you go to city council meetings and, you know, you're just trying to do the best you can. Like, you got to complain about a crack in the sidewalk or something. And they don't even give you the time of day to speak because they know you're going to complain.
You know about the racetrack closing down, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, Moroso. Now the fucking people are all on the streets doing it, and it might have been better for the city to almost buy that because it was profitable, you know.
You know what, man? I work on cars.
Yeah,
And
I love cars.
If that racetrack didn't exist, I would not have been able to get an opportunity.
It was your lacrosse, maybe.
You know,
it could give you an opportunity to look at different side of life. Not everybody has that.
You ever hear someone talk about mining, manufacturing, and agriculture?
A little bit. I didn't pay too much attention, I'm sure.
Well, when I was talking to a used machine broker many years ago, in 2016 I think it was, and he mentioned that to me. He said, without mining, manufacturing, or agriculture, you can't have a nation. So when they closed down that racetrack, a lot of shops that, you know, wanted to be close to the racetrack.
Murray Speed and... Yeah,
well, they're still there, but my point is, like a company like Orbit Racing that had some type of arrive and drive type of program where, you know, people pay.
Oh, the go-karts?
No. An arrive and drive program is, you know, you own a race car.
Oh, and then you let people rent it at the track.
That's one business model, but you may own a race car and you may travel the world.
Yeah.
But sometimes you want to fly into West Palm Beach and spend some time here and drive your car. Well, your car is ready.
But it's not street legal.
Well, that's not important. Orbit Racing has your car. It's stored in a climate controlled, you know, environment.
Yeah.
I mean, the tires are fresh. So when you want to go racing, you let them know and they take your car to the track and make sure you're ready to go race.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? That sounds fun.
Well, there were several businesses around here that used that business model because the track was there.
Yeah.
And now
they're affected by it, but just like the everyday people, like you got a race car, you've been going there, what, I don't know how long it's been there, but I'm 31, it's been there my whole life, I know.
Hey, but let's go back. Yes, exactly.
But what do you now you got a more expense than gas to go, now you're going up to Orlando Speedway or something, it's crazy.
I mean, the PBIR always had a problem. I mean, there was an issue there with management and whatever else, and who knows what happened.
Well, when Dave Rupp was running the place, believe it or not, I know him pretty good. He dates my buddy Zach.
Did you watch some of the city council meetings regarding the track? And what
noise ordinance. They wanted to imply a noise ordinance. That's what killed it.
Well, what killed it is that, you know, whatever company, whether it was Amazon or Walmart, one of these big companies wanted to make a fulfillment center, some kind of warehouse.
Oh, they needed some space.
They needed space, and And when I thought
They
about
got
it,
warehouses all along that one road too. That's where I got my 70 El Camino frame off restored. Well, it's half-assed. I never finished
I
it.
was listening to the city council, and I was listening to some of these, people that wanted to support the track. I'm listening to their arguments, and I just wasn't impressed because nobody was really talking about what opportunities were given to young people. There's no shortage of young people in this neighborhood that really admire these donk Chevrolets, the donk, the box, the bubble, the big wheel Chevy culture. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? That's something that gets the attention of young people around here.
Well, we had people coming from Miami up here to go racing, and I forget what the actual name of the event is. I know they knew it as the N-word Nationals, and it's like, okay, I went with my buddy Leon. It was fun, we watched this guy blow the wheels literally off of his Caprice. The whole ass of the car goes up and the wheels just fall over. It's like, oh
You're a
man.
car guy, and when
Yeah.
you're working on your car, and you're modifying it to try to squeeze some more speed or horsepower, we usually have to make things.
Oh
We have
yeah.
to make a bracket, or we got to make this, or we got to make that. And when you're working on these cars, you learn problem solving skills.
Yeah.
You learn problem solving skills that allow you to do other things besides
Well,
work on cars.
I'd hate to interrupt you again, but that's why I loved Riviera Beach Maritime so much when I was a kid. I know everybody loves to reminisce about high school, but I was only there for a year. I tried to get into Inlet Grove. I wasn't allowed to go there because I was in the wrong school district. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I've been to like 10 different schools and they're all in different districts. What do you mean? And they're like, oh, well, you're not going to that school. You'd be the only white kid there. There'd be problems. And I'm like, oh, are you serious? I even went to the teacher orientation, whatever, where they meet your mom and whatever. And, I was probably the only white kid there, but I wanted to go there for the automotive program. I didn't get that opportunity. And as privileged as people might say white people are, I didn't get that privilege to go to that school. But Riviera Beach Maritime, they opened their door to me. And I'm a dropout loser at the time, the year before. I had dropped out already at 15 because I gave up hope because of Inlet Grove. I was like, well, fuck it, can't do what I want. I don't want to do nothing, fuck it. And I had a talk with the principal over there. She was a real nice lady. And Miss Oliver was her name. And she gave me the opportunity. And again, I'm like one of the only white kids there, but I didn't have any trouble at that school at all. I probably learned more about engines there than I did helping my godfather build race cars. It was crazy because I got that one-on-one that I needed, and lunch break I'd be out sanding boats, and those were skills I used later in my life when I worked at Rivovich.
Yeah.
I got that job at Rivovich because of Riviera Beach Maritime. My buddy Sherwayne Williams was working there. I will put his name out there because he's nothing but a good man. He remembered me just from seeing me in Publix, and he's like, you should come over and apply.
What did you do at Rybovich?
I was a painter.
Okay.
Now, he was way more skilled than I was. Sherwayne, he's, I want to say he's Jamaican, but I know he's black. All right? But not that any of that matters, but there's a story I'll get to later with Rivovich that I wasn't so happy with. Sherwayne worked there for 7 years when I applied. All right, so he's been there 7 years. When I left, he had been there for 10 years. So I worked there for 3. This guy, so have you ever seen somebody work a chisel and a piece of wood and shape it into the most beautiful piece of
When
sculpture?
I was young, I saw a guy in Jamaica do that. It was very impressive.
So his job was to basically, they would cut things to shape big giant pieces of wood for these yachts, and Sherwayne would get in there with that chisel and make shit fit perfect.
Okay.
And he was a craftsman. And he'd get in there with the epoxy and do whatever he had to do. He's a woodworker. I'm a painter. I don't want to work that fucking hard. I like sanding. What I didn't know at the time is right when I got hired, immediately I was making more money than him.
Really?
Double his salary. He's working for like think at the time it was a little bit more than a minimum wage, $13, $14 an hour. And we're out in the sun, you know, we're dying every day. And you just go to work the next day because you love your job. I was making like 45 bucks an hour by the time I left. And I think when I started there, I was making about 35 an hour. So I almost had a salary like doubled. It's like, and then when I found out about this was like a year and a half into my employment. And I found out by accident. They gave me his check to go give to him because they knew.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't in an envelope. So I looked down at his check and I'm like, that's not right. He worked all week. And I argued with Michael Rybovich, which is third generation Rybovich. And what he told me is, he said, you don't need to worry about what that boy makes. He's here, he does his job, he doesn't complain, why would you complain? And I said, because that's my friend. He needs to buy a new truck right now because he just blew his engine up. I've been driving out to Lake Worth to go pick him up every day from over here in Northwood. And it's a long drive for me to go from Northwood to PGA. I wasn't working at this Rybovich. If you didn't know, Rybovich swapped hands. The people that made my Monte Carlo Fisher and Body, they bought Rybovich, the original Rybovich company, because they wanted to have the biggest boat. And I guess Michael, the guy I worked for, his dad told him the only way that's going to happen is if you buy the company. And he's like, sold, how much you need? Guy wrote a check right then and there, bought the whole boatyard. So Michael, he went and started his own boat company, you know, Michael Rybovich and Son, because he worked with his son. But good people over there, real good people. I enjoyed the job, the people were great, but that fucking racism came right back in my head. It's like, what am I doing that's better than what he's doing? I'm sleeping in the fucking bilge. If you don't know what that is, it's the hull of the boat.
I know what a village is.
Yeah, we had this girl that would work with us.
You ever meet Jim Moore?
Huh?
You ever meet a guy named Jim Moore?
Jim Moore.
He worked on wood boats.
Moore?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Jim.
When I was young and I thought I wanted to be a carpenter, I went to Cracker Boy Boat Works.
Yeah.
And Jim Moore gave me a job. And I learned how to, you know, work on these wooden boats.
Yeah, I bet he worked your ass out too.
Yeah, my job was to put the space helmet on and grind the lead paint off the bottom of the boat.
Oh, that's the worst job.
Yeah.
Oh, I did it one time. And I'm a painter. I did it for 3 years, and I only did it one time. And you got to put on the space suit and get underneath that thing and grind the shit at it. It's now they use copper-based paint, so nothing sticks to it. But
Well, I'm working on wood boats.
that shit.
So you got these
burns.
planks.
When it gets on your skin and it gets like right here in your armpit or something, it burns, don't it? That powder.
I wore all the stuff, man. I paid attention. I wore all
Oh
the
yes,
stuff.
I don't listen good. But like half day, I had it wrapped around my waist, and I'm in there still grinding it.
You know, when those boats, when the bilge doesn't work properly, and the bilge fills up with fresh water, then the boat rots.
Yeah, if it's salt water,
If
it
it's all
petrifies
salt
it.
water, it preserves it. And
It depends on how long it sits.
my job was to cut out those bad planks without cutting any ribs.
Same.
So
I've
sometimes
been
you
there,
couldn't
done
see.
that. You
Yeah.
get underneath and you inspect with the hammer.
No. If I remember correctly, I would grind off all the paint. That way I would see where the screws were, because each one of those planks were screwed into the ribs. So I would figure out where the screws were after I ground all the paint off, and then, you know, try to
Chisel them off or something, or back
yeah,
them
just
out.
try to take it apart without destroying the ribs.
Yeah.
You know, that was it. He wanted someone that would. So yeah, man. After you do all that, then you make a template, make a new, you know, plank or whatever you call it. Then you dunk that into the salt water, let it get soft, and you force it into position. Screw it up onto the ribs, and then we would hammer cotton in between the planks.
Cotton.
Yeah. So apparently, when the boats hit the water, you know, they're leaking until
yeah.
the water gets wet,
And then the wood
sorry,
expands.
until the wood gets wet and swells.
Mm-hmm.
And when it swells, the cotton is that joint.
Plug.
It makes the joint. So after you hammer the cotton in there, you got to really hammer it in there. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
job. So you're working upside down, hammering that cotton, and yeah, I learned a little bit about carpentry, but it didn't take long before I went back to being
It's
a tile
hard
man.
though, right? Now that you're a fabricator, got some knowledge with that, that's some hard fucking work.
Working on wood boats wasn't any joke, and Jim
No.
Moore was a very interesting guy. And I ran into him years later. You know, he had a shop on Avenue E in Riviera Beach,
Yeah.
and I think he was selling like specialty wood. I don't remember exactly what he was doing there. He didn't even remember me. You know, he was so old. But anyhow, that was my experience with boats, and that's when I saw the sign for that maritime marine
Oh, okay,
school.
okay.
I noticed the
Yeah, right across the
signs.
street from Cracker Boy.
Yeah, I mean, years later, when I revisited that area, and you know, I noticed that school because it wasn't there when I was a kid.
Yeah, I really do got a lot of good things to say about that school. I loved it, man. They comped me a few lunches because I couldn't afford them. You know, oh shit, you don't got $5 for lunch, just take it. You know, taught me all about boats and motors and stuff, safety on the water, which I wasn't a big boat guy. I was a car guy as a kid, but that was my opportunity to work on, you know, paint jobs because I like painting and motors.
So you were like 17, 18 years old, high school, learning
Yeah,
how
at
to
that
work on
time I
stuff.
was 16, I think, or
16.
16 or 17, one of the two.
When I was around that age, I was going to Palm Beach Lakes High School, and they put me in a typing class because they stopped the whole thing at North Tech.
Yeah.
So I'm in a typing class and really frustrated.
Hated it, I bet.
Yeah, I wound up dropping out, and I had a friend named Tony, and he had a stepfather that had a house in a neighborhood called Indian Hills, across the street from Jonathan Dickinson Park.
Yeah.
I recently spoke to Stu about that house, and he said, "Yeah, I mean the lease, the deed that came with the house spoke about never having. You're guaranteed never to have African American neighbors."
Oh
based
my
on
God, was
based
that
on
on the deed?
That was on the deed that he.
Well, now they moved them all out to Haverhill, so good luck with that.
So I wound up, taking a
That's
room
fucking
from
nuts,
Stu. I rented
though.
a room from the guy, and Stu, he was an old motor guy. Loved fishing boats and building stuff. So when he bought the house, he built a garage that was larger than the house.
Perfect, that's
You
my
know,
kind of house.
Yeah, it had a straight up engine room, and I was never exposed to this stuff as a kid. When I was young and I wanted to be around this stuff, I didn't have the opportunity. So now I'm roommates, essentially with this old motorhead guy, and it was a very impressionable time in my childhood, and it essentially kind of made me into what I am now.
I feel that.
And my concern, we were talking about gentrification and the neighborhood is changing
And
because of all this.
opportunities.
It's the opportunities. They're taking away any opportunity for a young person to organically learn how to make stuff, how to solve problems,
How to love to work with your hands or your mind. They're so focused on grades, paperwork, get them through the door. I've been to a few schools. I could have got my diploma. They'd have pushed me through the door, no problem. No fucking problem. Hey, yeah, we're just gonna fudge up your scores a little bit here. Yeah, you're good. You got your diploma. I purposely went out of my way to go to schools that challenged me. I didn't know how to read until I was 12 years old, if you could believe it or not. You know how I learned to read?
How?
Hot Rod magazine. My godfather.
You know what, man? I am not much different from you. I had a subscription to that stuff.
Well, my godfather, he's like, we've tried hooked on phonics tutors, this, that, the other. He can't pay attention. He doesn't care. And they're like, well, what does he care about? And Butch is like, cars. They're like, my mom's like, Shane doesn't even have a lot. He doesn't care about cars. No. Yeah, all I read was Auto Traders at the time, and I'd look at the picture and the price. So I wasn't really reading, So he got me a Hot Rod magazine, and then it evolved from there. Super Chevy Show over at Moroso. Speaking of Moroso earlier, Man, they had Super Chevy magazine. I got to see my car in a magazine because of that show. And granted, it was just the shell at the time. They had completely stripped it down and all new sheet metal. You can basically build a 70 El Camino out of a catalog. But we had a shop do the work, and they were very reputable. I'm not going to recommend them because they're kind of assholes, but at the time they were reputable, so we went to them. And man, we got fucking bent over a barrel. 20 grand just to have sheet metal put on the car, and we had already bought the sheet metal. Granted, they did the factory TIG spot weld shit like how it's supposed to be done, but it's like, god damn it. We became friends with the fabricator though. He used to work for Joe Gibbs. I'm trying to remember his name. Good guy. God damn it, what was his name? Fabex was the name of his company.
Yeah, he had a place over off Australian.
Okay, so you knew him.
I didn't really know him.
You seen him around though.
He was an English. He was a sheet metal guy. Did real nice work.
He built my El Camino for me, but he's not the one who charged me for it. He was working for this guy. But Dave.
Yes.
Dave. Yeah, he was a great welder, man. He got into them Porsches, and that's where he started making
That's
his money.
when I met him. Yeah. He showed me this wide body Porsche that he made out of sheet metal, and he made all the sheet metal
Hand
stuff
fab
himself.
too.
Yeah, it was nice.
And that was the one that was getting 2 engines. Oh no, you seen the Volkswagen Bug? That was the one that was getting 2 engines. He had like a 2018 Bug in there that he had all chopped up.
Oh, okay. So
And
he kept the front engine and added a rear engine.
Yeah,
to it?
and a rear engine to
Why
it.
not?
It was interesting. Not for me, but I loved him, man. He was cool. I learned a lot from him about metal work and stuff. Why you wear your gloves or you're gonna get fucking zapped. Man, I got zapped. I'm sitting there trying to hold some metal for him or something. He's like, "Where's your gloves?" And I'm like, "I don't need no gloves." And he zapped it right next to my finger, and it's like, ah! It's like, yeah, you do. Go grab your fucking gloves.
Yeah, a couple blocks south of where Dave had his shop over there in Mangonia Park is where I was first exposed to welding, you know. I forgot the name of the shop, but the guy whose name was George. And yeah, man, he gave me a job, and I was cutting lengths of tubing and, you know, using the iron worker. And eventually, years later, I wound up in Atlanta, and I'm working for a company, and I became the director of R&D, and they wanted a saw to process this granite stone. So I wound up going to work for the, I went to work with the fabricators as a consultant.
Okay.
Because, you know, I'm going to operate the machine. And I watched these fabricators make a ridiculous amount of money in a short period of time. So eventually, when I returned to Florida, I saw an opportunity to start building those bike taxis that you saw downtown. And I started building, you know, bike taxis. I bought a welding machine and never looked back, you know.
You know, I got 2, and I don't even know how to use them.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I got a Lincoln and I got a Miller or something.
MIG welder, TIG welder?
The little tiny box TIG or MIG.
Okay.
I don't know. But I love sheet metal, man. I love me some old sheet metal. I just don't know how to fix it.
I enjoy sheet metal.
I got into painting because painting seemed like a perfectionist type thing. But I'd really like to get into sheet metal because that's a perfectionist type thing too.
You ever do any CAD modeling?
None. I don't know how to use a computer.
You know,
Closest I get to a computer is my video game controller on my cell phone.
you should give me an opportunity to show you a few things.
I would love to learn how to use CAD software.
You know, we were talking about the neighborhood, you know, being overtaken by the, you know, by the developers.
But that's the thing. Is it going to be positive or is it going to be good? I'm sure it's positive for some people.
It's positive.
I think they just pulled the gun on it because the market was so
It's just
so ever changing.
It's
It was
just
going
evolution,
up
man.
and up and up, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's never gonna peak." And then right when they started building it, it started dropping.
It's just evolution. You know, when you
It is. I mean, look all along the coast. We got condos everywhere. It's gonna happen. It's
Yes.
just there's places it won't happen. Like not at least hopefully not in my lifetime. Like I don't see big condos like that ever happening on Palm Beach Island. What they got now, that's probably about it.
Well, that property
Yeah,
is
historic.
it's
But that could be said about my road too, because those buildings, you know, with that two-story where I live, that
yeah.
was originally built in 1890
As what?
as a single-story little shit shack somebody bought just so they could be across the street from the first post office in town.
Okay.
That post office across the street wasn't always there. Do you remember that crazy expensive burger shop that was on the corner over there by Dixie?
Yeah.
That was the original post office.
In that same space?
That same building.
Okay.
That same exact building. And that was, believe it or not, that was like the first big hotel type shit where you could, when you come in, when the dirt roads and shit back in 1890, Model Ts weren't even out barely. I got a picture of it out of a Palm Beach book one day, and I still got it. I want to get the picture blown up, but yeah.
You know, what I was trying to say about like the evolution of, you know, of a city.
Oh man.
You know,
but,
we're in the fourth industrial revolution.
But what is that exactly?
What do you
An
mean,
industrial revolution.
Well, it's
Does that have to do with unions or something?
no, it has a lot to do with things like additive manufacturing.
Okay.
And what I mean, like 3D printing.
Yeah.
And
You got a
earlier-
bunch of more players in the market now putting products out, basically.
I mean, let me give you an example. I'm watching Shark Tank, and there's a, you know, a entrepreneur trying to sell his idea, and he has this little device that fits on his fingers. It's designed to hold nails or screws. You know, when you're holding a nail and you hit it with a hammer, if you miss, there's a problem. So
Oh
he
yeah,
made,
look right there. I just hit myself with the hammer.
So he made something that kind of allows you to hold the nail or screw,
Yeah.
and it's cool.
There's a million different
He
ideas.
probably
for that.
started off with a 3D printer, right? You know the story about the coolest cooler?
The coolest cooler.
Some guy designs a cooler, he puts together a crowdfunding
And then
campaign.
they turned it into Yeti.
No, this guy hosted a crowdfunding campaign and he sold more coolers than he could build, and he got in trouble because he eventually made it right, but it's a very interesting story.
He wasn't able to meet the orders quick enough.
He was overwhelmed with success, and that success turned into a problem. But my point is, we should all have a 3D printer.
Oh, that should be a household item,
It
like in
should
Back
be.
to the Future.
But I would be surprised
They
if-
had a 3D printer in that movie that made food. And shit, our food's basically plastic anyways. What's the holdup here?
to take advantage of the top-down business models that are possible within this fourth industrial revolution, you have to know how to use some of the modern tools.
I agree with that.
You know, I've designed parts and I've filed some patents, and you know, I solve problems with a 3D printer from time to time. And I would like to show you how to solve some of those problems, or some
Yeah.
problems that you may occur.
But see, I would have never had an opportunity to do that if two strangers couldn't just be friendly and talk to each other. You came up to me while I was working. I almost wanted to tell you I didn't have $1 or something. It's like, man, I don't got no change. Get away from me. But you know, it's like
Oh,
we
shit.
go back to how people are dressed and how they come off, how they appear, how well groomed they are. I took one look at you. I'm like, okay, he's a reasonable person coming from the coffee shop. What's up, man?
You know, truth have it, I was coming back from a wake in Fort Lauderdale, and I bought that shirt, you know, yesterday, and I spent way more money than I ever spent on a shirt.
I think we're wearing the same shirt, but I'm sorry about the wake. That sucks. Oh yeah, you were wearing that shirt.
Yeah, I bought a black shirt to pay respect.
Yeah, we just did a funeral earlier this year too, me and my godfather. I grew up in that pawn shop, but on the back of the pawn shop, we had that sprint car. I don't know if you remember ever seeing that.
Never saw it.
Everybody called it a dune buggy, but it was a sprint car. It's the cars with the big wings on
Well, I
top.
know what a sprint car is.
Oh yeah, so we built one of those, and Butch drove it.
Oh yeah, he's a sprint car driver?
Well, he drove it for about 2 years till his ticker said no more, you know. He got AFib, so
Or did
took him out of the car and we put another Shane in the car.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, but the other Shane, remember, I'm Shane Wilson. This was Shane Kreidler. I put his name out there because he's a great driver. He's our driver for years, he still is. But
You still got the car?
yep. And we bought a new one, and we like Gen 3 engine already. We've been doing. Yeah, that's our third engine we built, so I'm calling it the Gen 3
You know, I
version.
used to work with a guy named Dennis, and this guy built a sprint car, and he put the radius rods on the inside of the chassis to run more offset. And instead of staggering the rear tires, he put a limited slip differential back there and just ran the same size tires in the back.
So weird.
You know, and I worked with him for a bit, and I don't know whatever happened with that car, but you know, he was from Detroit, and he spent a lot of time.
Well, I can tell you definitely know about sprint cars because they do get different size rear tires.
Oh yeah, I know all about the stagger, and you know, you basically adjust the tire pressure to make it go around the track.
I'm on my godfather all the time about that little edge you can get on somebody all the time. I'm the cheater in the race team, you know. I'm like, oh, we could put the nitrous line going underneath the manifold, and we could be spraying the whole time. Oh, we need to get traction control or this or that, but.
You know about Smokey Eunuch?
Oh, that's my godfather's favorite. We read his book while we built the first engine.
Oh yeah, he's a hero.
Yeah. But again, I wouldn't have got into reading. That wouldn't have been my opportunity if I didn't love cars as much as I do.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to put together some program in this space that we're in that allows young people to learn some problem-solving skills.
I would love that because the way I look at it is that's gate-kept knowledge. How to use CAD, how to do anything on a computer these days is
It's
gate-kept.
free, man. It's free. It really is free. You know, I went over to the Urban League not too long ago, and I met this guy named Tomas, and he showed me a room full of donated computers, and over there on Tambrin, and his job is to, you know, manage that space and get kids in there to learn skills.
That's awesome.
And there was not a single person in one of those seats. He basically says that it's almost impossible to get people interested.
To get students, to get anybody that wants to learn.
You know? So I'm thinking.
That's the world we live in, when you can just pull your phone out of your pocket, get on TikTok, and, oh yeah, what'd you say, man? Oh,
you know about the Sunset Lounge over there?
The bar and grill?
The Sunset Lounge on 7th Street, I think it was.
Okay.
Downtown in between Rosemary and Sappadilla. You know about that place?
Yeah, I remember eating there once or twice.
I don't think you ate there. When I was a kid, it was a dive.
Oh, it's a dive bar.
It was horrible. It was a.
That's why I don't know about it. I'm not a big drinker.
But in the recent, I've never been in there in my life. I've never gone in there. It was just the kind of place where I would just avoid it. But it was a very it was a historic. It's a historic black nightclub, and all kinds of great musicians.
Oh, you're talking over here in between us and Clematis.
Yes.
That was, yeah, now they've changed it to like a community center or some shit.
It's not open.
It's not open anymore?
It never was open.
Oh.
I remember my mom had a place on 5th Street, and at the time they were proposing the plan to redo the Sunset Lounge. And I went to some of these meetings, and I'm listening to what the people are saying about, we need to make it easy for, people from the neighborhood to have access to instruments and stuff like that. So we're going to redo, the Sunset Lounge to make some kind of community center.
I thought that's what they did.
They did, I guess. No one's used it yet.
Yeah, nobody goes in there.
Well, it's not that no one goes in there. It's not open yet.
Ah.
So
well, they got the sign up, I think.
when I was kind of involved a little bit. I got the opportunity to speak at one of those meetings, and I suggested that they put a skateboard park over there.
Yeah.
And when
That'd have been awesome. Hell yeah, I'd have been going to that.
Well, when you think about like the modern entrepreneur, it's a kid that started his own T-shirt brand or something like that. And he learned how to be an entrepreneur with social media and desktop desktop tools, vinyl plotters and using Photoshop and CAD or whatever kind of software. But, he didn't have to rent a warehouse and buy a bunch of expensive machines. He was able to, put together a system to make T-shirts for next to nothing. But
You
what
make good money with T-shirts.
but what that person had, and this is a hypothetical situation, what that person had was a community of skateboarders at
Okay.
their local skateboard park. You think about like Lake Clark Shores. At one point in time, there were all these awesome wakeboarders, coming out of Lake Clark Shores. Because all these homes around the canal, they get off work, they go
Go
do whatever.
wakeboarding.
How many wakeboard companies, T-shirt brands came out of Lake Clark Shores because those people had access to those canals and boats behind their houses? So what do we have, right? Yeah, black people, we're pretty good at music, but we can't even get into the building because it's closed. And
Yeah.
we saw the YouTube, revolution. All kinds of YouTubers took advantage of studios and became popular, and no one's been able to go in there and use that thing. But if they built a skateboard park,
Oh, it'd
we
be
might
used.
have
It'd
we
be
might have
used.
seen some white kids come into the neighborhood, make friends with some of those, unfortunate black people.
We became friends like that when we met because we're able to communicate. We're able to talk. There wasn't this hatred, no racism between us.
Nah.
But I'll tell you this, I'll prove to everybody watching, honestly. You know how you can know that this is white America without a fact? You never see a Martin Luther King Boulevard in a white neighborhood.
Or Barack Obama Boulevard.
Yeah, well, they're getting ready to change that too to Jimmy Buffett Memorial Highway because it's part of A1A.
Barack Obama?
Yeah, but they're going to leave that at Martin Luther King intersection. But it's like, that's how you know. If we can't just live together peacefully, understand that, shit ain't easy for everybody.
We can.
Your average homeless man might
We
make $100, $200 a day hustling, begging for money. But his situation's different in the fact that he can go home and he don't got a home. He'd be under an overpass and you got to cope, and then the next day it's another struggle. You're still wearing the same nasty clothes.
We all get along, man.
But they don't. People don't get along.
We get along when we kind of spend time at work or spend time at school or spend time on the same sport team.
When we got an incentive to get along, when
What
there
do you
is.
mean? I mean, when you go to school and you meet some black people and you have similar interests, you just become friends eventually.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how it should be.
That's how it is.
No.
Yeah,
No.
I think so.
I can tell you from the other side of the tracks, man.
All right, go ahead.
So
Tell
the
me.
reason I moved out of Juneau Isles when I was 15, this is a good reason too. I started dating. And first girl I brought home was a brown girl. My mother immediately accused her of stealing a Louis Vuitton purse.
Oh, gosh.
Fucking immediately. And she didn't even go in the house. She was just in the car. My mother obviously found her purse like 2 weeks later, but the damage had been done. And this was not just a one-time event with my mother. It was ongoing. It's still to this day. I'm 31. She'd still be like, "Oh, you're dating another brown girl, huh? Oh, is this one speak English at least?" I've heard a
gosh.
lot from my mom. But when you hear the word racism, you might immediately assume of certain hate groups, Black Panthers, KKK, whatever it is. Racism is inherently raised and instilled into children. It's one of those things that you have to teach. It's not one of those things you're born knowing.
I heard, like before I moved to Florida, my aunt warned me about like Emmett Till types of situations. She went out of her way to scare me, about Emmett Till type
She
situations.
didn't want you to have to learn your own lesson the hard way, because the hard way you might not survive. That's God's honest truth. The racism runs deep, and black people might not know how racist white people truly are. white people are fucking bad. I know because I am one.
But don't you think it's
I'm
the
around
older...
them and they see confidence in telling me shit
But don't
just
you
because
think-
I look a certain way.
But don't you think it's the older generation
They
of white
instilled
people?
it in the young people too. The
How?
young
How
people
so?
are just as racist as the young people are more racist in some ways than the older people.
Give me an example.
Okay, so my godfather, I bring plastic over to hang out. You know, we did some work, and my godfather meets my friend Plastic, tatted up felon, gold teeth, and you know, he's using the word colored, and I'm like, whoa, but you can't say that. You know, he's like, we're triggered by a word that was used commonly as a replacement for the N-word. So colored was the acceptable political correct way in whatever 1955 to identify a black person. You didn't say African American, you said colored. So he was still trying. You know,
He was still what now?
he was trying to not be racist, you know. He was still that was my godfather's God's honest attempt at trying to show my black friend some respect.
Yeah, but fundamentally, you're not a racist.
But I was raised by racists.
I know, but somehow
So-
you managed to develop your own thoughts and ideas.
But like I said when you first walked up, it's still in my mind, man. I don't got $1. You get away from
Yeah,
me.
but how
you
many
know?
seconds did it take for you to realize?
Oh, milliseconds.
Yeah.
But it's growing up in that neighborhood, it gives you a whole different perspective of not just color and race and stuff, but just life. I've learned so many good life lessons in this neighborhood about trust and about watching people's eyes when they talk to you mainly, because when you watch somebody's eyes, you're basically reading their thoughts. If somebody's dodgy and sketchy, you already know they're getting ready to rob you or do something.
There's a lot to be said about body language.
There's a lot. But that's why I wanted to stay on that topic of racism for a second. There's a lot to be said about fucking opportunities that are, I don't want to say taken away from you before you even have a chance, but basically something like that, you know? So I've known Freemasons that will have a black son or a black daughter, and they get completely cut off, you know? It's
Really?
Freemasons.
So the Freemasons that are black and the Freemasons that are
There
white.
are black Freemason families in Florida. I know one, but it's still like shunned to interbreed with the Freemasons. And it'd be the same thing. It'd be the same thing if that same businessman, black guy, went and got a white wife and had a white kid.
Are you talking about the Masonic temples?
They got them everywhere. That's part of Freemasonry.
Right. So you got black Masonic temples, you got Masonic temples in black neighborhoods, and you got Masonic temples in white neighborhoods.
But what I'm saying is the group of people as a whole, they're usually segregated. You don't got the blacks hanging out. You might have one or two in like a group of white guys in a photo. Because you see the chapter photos every year, they take one. But it is like proofs in the photos. You just look at the photo and you say, oh yeah, they got like two black guys
No, I
in
mean,
that group.
I get it. I absolutely get it. You know,
But
when
it's
I'm
these
from-
are the when I say Freemasons, I hope that it's understood that these are the people that really control the country. Not to the extent that BlackRock and George Soros do, but I'm saying these are the local businesses that are mom and pop that they work together to help each other. It's a community, and it's when you're a certain degree Freemason, you know, you got responsibilities. You're expected to keep secrets. You're expected to, you know, help things go the way they're supposed to go, for lack of better words. But these people, they're super racist. And it's both sides of the tracks. Blacks are racist against the whites, and the whites are racist against the blacks. But I'll tell you something that you won't even see here in Florida. The Spanish Masons. They're very few. Very few. And those Spanish people that we have here in Florida, that are legal, a lot of them go on to make great businesses, lawn care businesses or painting businesses or whatever, and they have a right to be Masons too. And they should have their own chapters, but when it comes to Masonry, it's usually passed down through the generations, and that's why I'm trying to say that they have their racism. When you're a white person and you got a black son, he's not going to be invited. They don't want you to pass the torch, in other words, because you fucked up.
You don't think there's a chapter of Masons somewhere in America?
Oh, I'm sure there's
completely-
chapters in America that are perfectly normal, but
Yeah.
they got to stick to what they got to stick to, and they got old traditions that go back hundreds of years.
As I'm thinking about what you're talking about, and I'm thinking about you and Butch. I mean, I know Butch, and he's never said anything racist to me, but
Butch's racist side only came out if he got angry.
I get it, and I
Yeah.
don't think Butch necessarily liked me. I don't think he disliked me, but I never felt any warm fuzzy feeling from Butch. I get a warm fuzzy feeling from you. I don't get a warm fuzzy feeling from Butch, but I don't have anything personal against
Well,
Butch.
I'm more outspoken than he is, even when it comes to like NASCAR piddly shit. I'm
But
just
you're
outspoken
sitting here
about it.
telling me that Butch is a significant father figure, but yet
Absolutely.
you're not a racist.
Well, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink, And he
Right.
didn't really raise me to be a racist. He just told me to know the difference between, somebody that's out to get you and somebody that, you can trust to an extent, It's like you're told as a kid, don't get in the car with a stranger, right?
Yeah.
I got in your car after like a couple minutes of knowing you because I had that warm, fuzzy feeling of trust. Like, hey, this is a trustworthy guy. It's fucking, I know I've seen him somewhere, so, But if I was brought up racist, it'd have been a total different story. But I don't think you can force that on anybody. People make their own opinions. But
Well, it's
racism
taught.
today is different from racism yesterday. They want you
How
to
so?
They want you to believe, and when I say they, our U.S. government, it's their use of propaganda on us today.
I don't think it's the whole government. I think there's a little factions.
There's a little shadow government in there that is pulling strings, because 90% of the politics are race-based these days, and it's like, what does it matter what Donald Trump's going to do for the black community or the Asian community or the white community?
But there's big.
He's a well-spoken man. He's done a good job for 4 years. Let's give him another good 4 years, because I wasn't satisfied with Biden, and I don't.
Let's say you elected to have. Let's say there was an organized flag football game, and it was the Democrats against the Republicans.
That'd be a good one.
And they were picking the teams, right from Congress or whatever.
Yeah, I'd want some young, healthy men on
There
my
will be
team.
a lot of
Yeah.
white and black people on both sides.
No, there's not a lot of. That's the thing. There's not a lot of racism in Congress. The racism is for us.
I know, but
They want to
people that
they
are
want to
putting-
separate us. I'll ask you a really good question again. Why the hell isn't Martin Luther King Boulevard in white neighborhoods? Because they want us to still distrust each other. Now that's the government naming roads.
You don't think it's the people from the neighborhood that are kind of, lobbying to change the name of the street?
It's a well-known thing that the worst part of town always gets the road named Martin Luther King Boulevard in any city.
But the people that live in that neighborhood can elect to change the name of the street.
It's not even about that, though. It's
do you-
about the inherent racism that the government segregated these people, and now they're fucking putting that road right down the middle like a banner. Like, hey.
You know what? We all have these smartphones in our pockets.
Yeah.
Right? And we have more of an opportunity now to educate ourselves than we did when I was your age.
Yeah.
If I wanted to get some deep knowledge, I had to go to the library.
Now it's accessible at the flick of a finger,
So
right
the only
there.
thing, in my opinion, that kind of perpetuates the racism in America is the lack of education. And now it's not even so much a lack of education, it's a lack of desire to be educated, because the information's in your pocket.
Me personally, this is where I'm coming from. I think school districts are the fucking problem.
They are.
Now, the school districts go with the segregating of communities. You got your black and Spanish poor communities. You very rarely see a white family in that community. If you do, they're very poor, probably got a drug problem or something, you know. But these school districts will keep you segregated even through school. So when you do eventually you start working with other people, you're not seeing them as people. You're seeing them as competition, in another word.
But it's not the federal government. You know, it's not America per
It
se.
has to be.
It's
Because
not, man. It's not the
who's in
federal.
control of where people live?
Them people are in control of where they live. And
No,
sometimes
people can't
we
control
are.
their incomes.
We can. Absolutely.
They can't control their ambition. They can't control their desires.
Yes,
you know?
you can.
I would love to be able to say that I could. I can't. I know I can't.
Well, maybe you can't, but there are people that on their own steam have made it out of these neighborhoods without becoming a sports or hip hop music celebrity.
Yeah.
It happens. It happens. It doesn't happen as often as we like it to happen, but it happens. And sometimes it requires you to be a nerd. Sometimes it requires you to stay inside and read books or whatever. And those people that decide to educate themselves, you know, without the help of the school board, those are the people that make it out.
Opportunity runs deep, though, but here's the thing. Everything in this country is monetized. Everything has a dollar.
But that's okay.
Everything's worth something. It's got a price tag.
Yeah,
So
and there's nothing.
you got private schools that got classrooms of less than 12 people where each kid gets individual learning, and those kids don't know what racism is. They haven't experienced it. They don't know what a real bully is because they haven't experienced it. You go to a public school, now you got 30, 40 kids plus classroom, and you can't even get off the bus without getting your shoes stole like when I was 15. But prior to that experience going to public, I had no idea what racism really was, you know? I had no idea what poverty really was because I wasn't part of it. I wasn't witnessing it with my own eyes. And I feel like if school districts shelter these rich, privileged, and then the poor got to be at their own school far away from them, so they never really get to intersect. They don't get that where each other are coming from, you know. They can't understand each other's lives, why somebody would struggle to get shoes off of somebody. I understand why somebody would take my shoes now, but I didn't then, you know.
Of course.
See, and even talking about it, it hurts, you know, because I was so angry. It hurts to be angry, man. You don't want to be angry at something you can't control. And I know he couldn't control whatever his circumstances, just like I couldn't control what I was feeling then, but I know there's racism because I've witnessed it from good people.
Oh, I've seen it too, man.
Best job I had was over at Michael Rivovich, but that guy's from a different generation, you know, and the guy who got me in at that job made pennies compared to what I was making. I was eating steak every night while he was barely getting to work.
It's pretty sad, man. It's pretty sad. You know, it's obvious that you have a soul and you have a heart, you know, and you care about, you know, your fellow human. But it's unfortunate that, you know, a lot of people feel like if they die with a lot of things, they win. You know, they win life. And all we really have is our legacy, you know, what we've done and how people view us. And
that's the truth, man. It's like I hang out. The YouTube doesn't know yet, but we had a conversation earlier about how my family's pawn shop got boycotted when I was a child. My godfather, he worked there, and he would run off the scary people. You know, my mom was working there, and she didn't carry a gun, but he did. And man, he was tough and loud when I was a kid, and that's all I really remember. But you know, hearing from people that knew him, and they all say he's racist or whatever, and then they'd bring up this guy Reggie. Reggie's kind of famous in the black community in Palm Beach, at least from the 90s anyways, because something happened to him. My godfather, pushed him up against the wall because he was peeing on the building. And my godfather's getting out of work, and he turns the corner, and here's this guy peeing on the building. And he's a big, mean dude, so he pushed him into the wall and threw him out in the street. And I guess a cop drove by or something and arrested Reggie, old black guy who had a drug problem. Reggie got let out of gun club at 2 in the morning, and he got run over by a car, and he lost his life. His life was worth living because it had meaning. They changed policies at the gun club prison to where they don't let people out if they're intoxicated or if it's too late past a certain time. So if you got to spend the night in jail, thank Reggie if you're in Palm Beach. You know, he's a good man. He died for your right to stay in jail for the night. But he didn't need to. And he probably wouldn't have gone to jail if it wasn't for what happened to him. But later in my life, kind of like how I met you and we seem like kindred souls, I met my friend Plastic and we're kindred souls. But through meeting him, I met his family, which just so happened to be Reggie's mom and his, siblings. I get invited to their Thanksgiving. I get invited to Super Bowl parties and stuff. It's fun, and they've forgiven my godfather, and they told me to tell him that. My godfather didn't even remember who Reggie was. I'm like, Butch, they boycotted the pawn shop for 6 years because you pushed him into a wall. You don't remember? And he's like, oh, yeah, that guy. And it's like, yeah, man, that guy. I'll hang out with his family. They wanted to let you know that they forgive you. His life had meaning. He's like, oh, well, that's not my fault they let him out. I keep hearing that it was it's not my, and I'm like, it's not, but hatred brings out the worst in people. And if all you see is color and anger, you need to stay inside. You don't need to be around normal people.
We're seeing less of it based on the color of skin these days, and we're seeing more of it based on your financial status.
Oh, everything's monetized. Everything's got a dollar sign attached to it. Education, your well-being, your insurance. You need meds. Oh shit, you better pay for them.
The crazy thing about it, though, is education is almost free because the government will give you a cell phone if you're poor enough.
And it's still not prioritized because people don't want to be rich and they don't want to actually have money,
Shane,
because then they're
we
gonna.
gotta do it, man.
They don't want that because then they're going to be into a different tax bracket. And
Shane, years ago, I saw this documentary called Control Room, and it was a story from the Iraqi perspective of one of those wars in Iraq where we tore the statue down. And there was a bunch of Iraqi people at Al Jazeera television that were allegedly bombed right before we tore that statue down. And those people were interviewed in this documentary called Control Room. So these people that were being interviewed lost friends and families because they weren't with the coalition news forces. They were independent of the coalition news. They were trying to report their perspective. But
they were getting shot because they didn't have on the press attire.
In their own country.
Yeah.
So they're talking about what happened the day before. Now the question was asked, if you can go anywhere in the world, where would you go? Now this Iraqi person that lost friends, co-workers, said, I would go to America because America is still the greatest country in the world. And when I heard that, I was kind of taken back.
The American dream is still alive, even though it might not be dreaming
let me
here.
Finish. There was another Iraqi guy that was asked a question, what's going to happen to America? And this guy said, don't worry about America. Americans are going to fix America. And I was, again, taken back. So now, fast forward maybe 10 years. I had a fire at my photography studio, so I had to close it down. And I'm watching this documentary called Detroit Lives.
Yeah.
And it's showing this city, Detroit, that went bankrupt, and how the citizens are rebuilding Detroit with the money from their own pockets, fixing streets. And so I was kind of it reminded me about that documentary, and I'm thinking maybe those Americans that that guy was talking about in the Control Room documentary are in Detroit. So I went to Detroit, and I spent, maybe a couple years up there watching these regular people rebuild their city without the help from the government.
Good on them. That's what I was doing today when you walked up on me. I just got done filling a pothole with the paver locks.
So I think it's important, for us to teach young people around here some problem-solving skills.
That's what it's all about, man. People have to know how to use their hands and their brains. They gotta be able to solve their own issues in life.
If we developed some products, and those products can be modeled in 3D space, we could 3D print those products. We can test those products and potentially build a business around those products. And I would like to show some young person how to do that from start to finish. Not so I can hire them to make that product,
So they got a future.
just so they can see
Yeah.
how to be creative.
Oh, an open door.
Yes.
Then they can
That's the kind of stuff
find
that we need
something
to
that
do.
they got an interest in, that they can pursue, and it'll be beneficial to them. It makes a lot of sense.
Skateboarding puts all kinds of people on the same playing field.
Absolutely.
You can go to Walmart, you can get a decent skateboard for almost the same price of a basketball. You know, when I rented my studio over there on Service Street many years ago to build a photography business, I had a neighbor, and he was telling me about a survey that was done to a high school senior surveys that were done to high school senior classes, and the question was asked, what are you guys going to do after graduation? And apparently 80% of those high school students said be rich. And when they asked the question, well, how? 80% said basketball, hip hop.
Yeah.
Those were
One in a
things.
million shot, all of them.
Those were things that I did not think were possible. So I thought, just like you, crazy.
One in a million shot, yeah.
But to
Determination will get you there if you're really determined.
but to their credit, we've seen individuals outside of organized sports become basketball celebrities because they use social media. We've seen hip hop artists develop themselves using these social media platforms. Some of those students proved me wrong.
That's good.
And when I think about that building down there where the Sunset Lounge was, I imagine it being set up for these young people from the neighborhood to take advantage of this social media YouTube business model. But they can't get in.
Yeah. I don't even know how to, aside from watching videos, I wouldn't know how to record a video and post it on YouTube.
When I was a kid,
I wouldn't know how to make a email or a Gmail because I haven't. I
I'm
don't
gonna
know
show
how to
you
do
all
any
this
of
stuff,
that.
man. I might as well. When I was a kid in New York,
I think I did make an email for my Facebook.
when I was in New York in the 90s, I went back up there to do some music stuff. I was with someone's entourage. I wasn't doing any real work. I was just there. But we saw a lot of hip hop. We saw a lot of hip hop talent come to the stage during the 90s, and it was mainly because the equipment became so inexpensive.
Yeah.
We went from using an expensive reel-to-reel recorder to using ADAT. The equipment just went down. So we were able to buy equipment and develop our own music, approach the record company, the traditional recording company. They would listen to the stuff and they would sometimes give us a distribution deal. So because the equipment became so inexpensive, hip hop was able to flourish during that time.
Yeah.
This camera equipment that we're using, it's no longer expensive. We're in the third motion picture revolution. This is a term that I kind of invented. During the first motion picture revolution, we were introduced to the movie star. Then they somehow added the audio track, to the film reel.
And then color.
and color, and we eventually were introduced to the movie star slash product endorsement person. The second motion picture revolution was based on the light sensor that came out in the late 70s, early 80s. And as a result, we saw soap operas, inexpensive pornography, we saw news, sports. That was a result of the VHS, light sensor revolution. Now, we all have the thing in our pocket.
That can make us money.
It's
but we
super
just
inexpensive.
not everybody knows how to do it.
And then we all have, if we have a social media account, we all have a distribution deal. We already signed a distribution deal. But why, I don't know.
No, you're speaking sense. Everybody, they got a phone in their pocket, they can record themselves, and then they can post themselves on the world stage. Everybody has that ability, but how many people actually know how to do it?
And why is that? A lot of people know how to do it.
It could be lack of interest, but it could be also lack of formal education of any type.
I think it has to do with what your peers are doing. So like when I thought about that park across the street from the Sunset Lounge being a cool place to go skating, people travel from all over the world to go down to that skate park in Miami under that bridge.
Hell yeah.
And if we had young people from all over the world going to the, skateboard park in Pleasant City or wherever, now we got young people from all over the world bringing ideas and exposing the young people in our neighborhood to those ideas. And all they got to do is reach in their pocket, pull out the phone so they can expand on that idea.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like that happening. We're just like, I don't know, man. We're like, we don't care about them.
People are hung up on everything going on in the world because it's so freaking overwhelming. We got wars overseas, politics are pinning people against each other, races can't seem to get along. You got well-established cities that are breaking up because...
Hey, Shane, we got to take a break, man. You and I can talk about this all night long,
yeah,
man.
I'm sure.
We're going to have to do this again because we're like, how long is this? Where's the counter on this thing?
It's at least an hour.
Yeah, we're deep into it. And we got to wrap it up
All right.
and do a part 2.
Oh, we do a part 2 if it gets up to enough likes.
We should do a part 2 just so we can get together and mess around with the computer and, learn some CAD.
I'm definitely about that.
But Shane, man, thanks, man. I
appreciate the opportunity of bringing me in. I looked forward to doing this right when you told me about it. I'm like, yeah, that sounds really exciting. Talk about the neighborhood a little bit.
Yeah, let's do something to make a difference.
I would love that, man. I definitely want to buy your, or help contribute to getting him a nice violin. I forget his name, but... Hyder, yeah. I seen him on Clematis a bunch, and I know that's how he makes his money. I'd pitch in on that.
He may still have a violin.
Well, he pawned it, so maybe
Do you know if he pawned it or not?
That's what you were saying, or the interview was.
I had Tinker in the car, and Tinker saw him, and Tinker said, oh, he doesn't have his violin, he must have pawned it. So she was just making an assumption. But the last 2 times I saw him, he didn't have his violin. So, yeah, we'll find out.
Well, I'd chip in on that. I'd like to see him back doing this thing.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
But again, Shane, I'm gonna stop the recording, man. But thanks for
All right.
thanks
Thank
for your time.
you for your time. You have a good one, sir.